My name is Anna, and I am just an old woman who has lived most of her life in silence and sacrifice. People may look at me and see nothing special, nothing remarkable, just another poor, wrinkled face blending into the crowd. But behind these tired eyes is a lifetime of struggle, a lifetime of giving without expecting anything in return. My whole life has been dedicated to one person, my only son, Daniel. I was never blessed with riches, nor did I ever dream of luxury. I only dreamed of one thing, that my son would grow up to have a better life than I ever did. From the moment I first held him in my arms, I knew that everything I would do from then on was no longer for me, but for him. Life was not kind to me. I lost my husband when Daniel was still a baby, and from that day forward, it was just the two of us against the world. With no education, no savings, and no family to lean on, I had to find a way to keep us alive. So, I worked wherever I could. I cleaned houses, washed clothes for neighbors, and sometimes begged for leftover food when money wasn't enough. There were nights when I pretended I wasn't hungry, just so Daniel could eat the last piece of bread we had. There were mornings when I would wake up before the sun, sweep the streets, and return home with a few coins enough to buy him school supplies or a small meal. And every single day, as I watched my son grow, I felt that all the pain was worth it. I still remember the way Daniel used to look at me when he was little. His big brown eyes sparkled with love and admiration. He would cling to my arm and say, "Mama, one day I'll make you proud. I'll buy you a big house so you don't have to work anymore." Those words became my strength. They were like fire in my heart, pushing me to work harder, to endure every insult, every hardship, every tear that fell in the darkness of the night. I didn't care if people looked down on me for being poor. I didn't care if my hands became rough, my back bent, or my health weakened. All that mattered was Daniel's future. I wanted him to have the education I never had, the opportunities I never saw, the dignity I was denied. And so, day by day, year by year, I gave him everything. When other children had new clothes, Daniel had hand-me-downs, but they were always clean. When other children ate meat, Daniel had rice and vegetables, but he was never hungry. And when other mothers rested, I worked late into the night, whispering prayers that my son would one day rise above this life of struggle. My prayers were answered. Daniel grew up to be intelligent, hardworking, and ambitious. He excelled in school, and eventually, he earned a scholarship to university. I still remember the day he left for the city. I stood at the bus station, holding back my tears as I handed him a small bag with food I had prepared. "Don't forget where you came from," I told him. "And don't forget that no matter how far you go, Mama will always be here." He hugged me tightly, and for a moment, I felt like the happiest mother alive. My sacrifices were finally bearing fruit. I believed that one day, when he stood tall and successful, he would look back and remember the woman who carried him through the storms. Years passed quickly. Daniel finished his studies, got a good job, and eventually married a beautiful woman named Clara. When he introduced her to me, my heart swelled with joy. She was elegant, well-educated, and came from a wealthy family. At first, I thought, this is a blessing. My son has found a good partner. I welcomed her with open arms, thinking she would become like a daughter to me. But deep inside, a quiet fear began to grow. Would she accept me as I am? Would she see past my worn-out clothes, my rough hands, my humble life? Or would she see me only as a burden, a stain on their perfect new life together? I brushed those thoughts away at first, convincing myself that love would bind us all together. After all, I had raised Daniel to be kind, to respect others, and to never forget his roots. Surely, he would guide his wife to understand that family is not about wealth or status, but about love and sacrifice. I was wrong. The first time Clara visited my home, she smiled politely, but I noticed how her eyes wandered over the old furniture, the cracked walls, and the patched curtains. She tried to hide her discomfort, but I could feel it. I told myself I was over it. Maybe she just wasn't used to such a simple lifestyle. When they invited me to stay with them after their wedding, I was overjoyed. I thought, finally, I can be close to my son again. Finally, I won't have to eat alone every night or fall asleep in an empty house. With hope in my heart, I packed my small bag, carrying only the essentials, and moved into their beautiful home. At first, Clara was sweet. She greeted me with respect, called me mom, and even helped me settle in. I thought my fears were foolish. But slowly, things began to change. She started making little comments about my clothes, my accent, the way I ate. They were small remarks, wrapped in laughter, but I felt the sting. One day, she looked at my old shoes and said, half jokingly, "Mom, maybe we should get you something nicer. Those look like they've been through a war." I smiled and nodded, but inside, I felt the shame burning my chest. I didn't want to cause trouble, so I stayed quiet. Another time, when guests came over, she quickly ushered me into another room, saying, "Mom, maybe you should rest. You don't need to join us." Her words were polite, but her eyes told me the truth. She was embarrassed of me. Each day her respect for me faded, and what hurt the most was Daniel's silence. He never defended me. He never said, "Don't speak to my mother that way." He just looked down, pretending not to hear. I told myself to endure it. After all, I had endured worse in my life. But no matter how strong I tried to be, the pain of being insulted by the woman my son loved and ignored by the son I sacrificed everything for, was heavier than anything I had ever carried. Still, I held my tongue. I prayed in silence, asking God to give me patience, asking Him to open their hearts. Because despite everything, I loved them. Despite the insults, despite the shame, despite the tears I cried alone at night, I loved them with all my heart. I may have been poor in wealth, but I was rich in love. And that was something no one could ever take away from me. The days in my son's house began like any other household. The mornings were filled with the smell of coffee and toast, the sound of Clara humming softly in the kitchen, and the sight of Daniel getting ready for work. At first, I felt grateful. Just to be there, to sit at the same table as my son, to hear his laughter again. After years of being alone, I thought my heart would finally be at peace. But peace is fragile when it rests on unspoken pain. At breakfast, Clara would often speak about her friends, about expensive dinners, about vacations to places I had never even seen on a map. She would glance at me occasionally, as if making sure I was listening, and then add comments like, "You know, Mom, the world is so much bigger than these small, simple lives." We are blessed not to be stuck in poverty." She would smile as if it were a harmless statement, but every word was like a needle in my chest. I sat quietly, stirring my tea, pretending not to notice the way Daniel avoided my eyes. I knew he could feel my discomfort, but he said nothing. That silence spoke louder than Clara's words. The neighbors came to visit sometimes, especially Clara's friends. They were elegant women, dressed in silk and perfume, their nails perfectly polished, their voices full of gossip and laughter. I tried to be kind, offering them tea, but Clara would quickly intercept, saying, "Oh no, Mom, you don't have to. Just sit down and rest." Then she would laugh softly with her friends and whisper, thinking I couldn't hear, "She doesn't really fit in with this crowd." I pretended not to hear. I smiled as if nothing touched me. But when the laughter echoed in the walls, I felt smaller than ever before. One afternoon, I was folding laundry when Clara entered the room. She looked at the neatly stacked clothes and shook her head. "Mom, you fold them like in the HSC, like in the old village way. This is not how it's done here. Let me redo them." She took the pile from my hands, refolding each piece with a kind of superiority that made me feel useless. I whispered softly, "I'm sorry, dear. I was just trying to help." She didn't even look at me when she replied, "Sometimes helping means staying out of the way." The words pierced me. I sat quietly, my hands trembling, wondering if I had truly become nothing more than a burden in my son's house. But the most painful moment came one evening during dinner. The table was filled with food: roasted chicken, fresh vegetables, warm bread. It smelled delicious, but my heart was too heavy to enjoy it. Clara spoke loudly, her voice sharp, as she looked at Daniel. "Why do we keep her here? She has nothing. She adds nothing. She doesn't belong in this kind of life." The room fell silent. My fork slipped from my hand, and I looked at my son, hoping, praying, begging silently with my eyes for him to say something, to defend me, to remind Clara of all the years I had spent breaking my back, just to give him a chance in this world. But Daniel said nothing. His head lowered, his eyes fixed on his plate, his lips sealed. That silence broke me more than Clara's words ever could. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding so loudly I thought they could hear it. I wanted to speak, to remind him of the nights I went hungry, of the mornings I walked miles just to earn a few coins for his books, of the sacrifices that had carried him to where he was now. But my voice betrayed me. No words came out, only tears welled in my eyes, falling silently onto my plate. Clara noticed, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she sighed and muttered, "See? This is why I say she doesn't fit in. Always crying, always weak." I excused myself quietly, walking back to my small room. I closed the door and pressed my hands to my chest, feeling the weight of years of love crashing down. I prayed that night, not for myself, but for Clara. I prayed, "God, forgive her. She doesn't know the pain she causes. Forgive my son too, for forgetting his roots. Maybe one day, they will understand." The next morning, Clara knocked on my door. Her voice was cold. "Mom, you should visit your old house for a while. Maybe you'll feel more comfortable there. We're busy here, and, you know, it's hard to take care of everyone." I understood the hidden meaning. She wanted me gone. I packed my small bag slowly, folding my old clothes with care. As I placed each piece into the bag, memories flooded my mind. Daniel's first school uniform, the shoes I saved for months to buy, the nights I sewed his torn shirts under the dim light of a candle. Every stitch was a symbol of my love, yet here I was, being asked to leave the very house I thought was built on that love. When I walked out of the room, Clara stood waiting. She crossed her arms and said sharply, "Where are you going, old woman? Planning to run away?" I looked at her, and despite the storm inside me, I smiled gently. "Don't worry, my child. I may be poor in money, but I am rich in love. One day, you will understand what that means." Her face hardened, but I didn't wait for her reply. I walked out, step by step, my back heavy with sorrow, but my heart refusing to carry hate. As the door closed behind me, I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Lord, give me strength. Let my son remember one day. Let her learn the value of respect. And if not, let me carry this pain silently, as I have carried every burden before." That night, I returned to my small, broken house. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, but it was mine. It welcomed me like an old friend, wrapping me in its silence. I lit a small lamp, sat on the floor, and wept. Not for myself, but for the son I had lost, not to death, but to pride, to wealth, to the silence that chose comfort over courage. I cried until I could no longer cry, and when the tears dried, I told myself, this is not the end. Life has its way of teaching lessons. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, they will see. The days after I left my son's house were quiet, but not peaceful. My small home welcomed me back with cracked walls and an empty silence that seemed louder than any insult I had heard before. It was strange to be back in the place where so many of my memories lived, memories of Daniel as a little boy, running barefoot through the rooms, his laughter bouncing off the walls, his tiny hands tugging on my dress as he begged me to play with him. Those memories warmed me, but they also cut me deeply, because the boy who once clung to me with love had now let go without a word. At night, I lay on my old bed, listening to the wind rustling through the broken windows, and I prayed. I prayed not for myself, but for my son and his wife. "Lord," I whispered, "they don't understand yet. They think wealth will protect them from pain. They think love can survive without respect. Please open their hearts. Please let them see the truth before it's too late." The next morning, I woke with a heavy heart but a calm spirit. I tried to fill my days with small tasks, sweeping the floor, watering the few plants outside, sewing old clothes. The house may have been poor, but I kept it clean. Somehow, keeping it tidy gave me strength, as if by putting order in my surroundings, I could also find order in my heart. Occasionally, neighbors would stop by. They were simple people, like me, who had known me for years. One of them, an old woman named Maria, brought me some vegetables from her garden. She looked at me with gentle eyes and said, "Anna, I heard what happened. You are stronger than most people know. Don't let their words break you. God sees everything." I thanked her, but I didn't share the depth of my pain. Some wounds are too personal, too sacred to be spoken out loud. One afternoon, as I was sitting outside, mending an old blanket, Clara appeared. I didn't expect her. She stood at the gate, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. For a moment, I thought she had come to apologize. But her words crushed that hope. "So this is where you live," she said, her tone sharp. "No wonder you act the way you do. Look at this place. It's falling apart. You should be grateful we even let you stay in our home for as long as we did." I looked at her calmly, my hands still holding the needle and thread. I could have lashed out. I could have told her about the years I had sacrificed, the meals I had skipped, the endless work I had endured just to raise her husband into the man he had become. But instead, I smiled softly. "My dear," I said gently, "this little house may be broken, but it is filled with love, and love is something no money can buy. You may laugh at me now, you may see me as nothing, but one day, you will understand that wealth cannot replace respect, and pride cannot fill the emptiness of a loveless heart." Her face hardened. She shook her head and walked away without another word. I watched her go, and instead of anger, I felt only sorrow. She didn't realize that every insult she threw at me was not truly about MAT, was about the emptiness in her own heart. That night, I prayed again. "Lord, I do not hate her. She is young, she does not know the weight of her words. Please, teach her gently. Please, help my son remember the mother who carried him when no one else would." The days turned into weeks. Sometimes Daniel would call, but his voice was distant, rushed. He would ask if I was all right, if I needed anything. But he never said the words I longed to hear. "I'm sorry." I always answered kindly, "I'm fine, my son. Take care of your wife. Take care of your health." Then the call would end, leaving me in silence again. I knew he was torn. I knew deep down he loved me, but his silence had built a wall between us, a wall stronger than any distance. And yet, I refused to let bitterness grow in my heart. A mother's love does not vanish because of disappointment. It bends, it bleeds, but it does not break. One Sunday morning, I went to church. I wore my cleanest dress, though it was faded and patched, and I sat quietly in the back pew. As the choir sang, tears rolled down my cheeks. Not because of the words of the hymn, but because of the simple truth it reminded me of, that love is patient, that love endures all things, and that forgiveness is greater than pride. After the service, a young girl approached me. She was about Clara's age, but her eyes were soft and kind. She said, "I saw you crying during the hymn. Are you all right?" I smiled at her and replied, "I am fine, dear." Sometimes tears are not from sadness, but from remembering too much love that has been hidden away. She didn't understand fully, but she nodded respectfully and walked away. That small moment reminded me that kindness still existed in the world, even from strangers. Weeks later, Clara and Daniel invited me to a family gathering. I hesitated at first, fearing more humiliation, but something inside me told me to go. Maybe this was my chance to speak, not with anger, but with love. When I arrived at their home, Clara looked surprised. She hadn't expected me to come. The house was filled with guests' friends, relatives, people who didn't know my story. I sat quietly in the corner, watching everyone laugh and enjoy the food. Then, as if fate had planned it, one of Clara's friends asked her, "Where's your mother-in-law? We never see her." Clara hesitated. For a moment, I saw the flicker of discomfort in her eyes. Then she pointed to me and said, "There she is." Her friend looked at me with a polite smile and said, "You must be proud. Your son has done so well for himself." Clara quickly added, with a hint of mockery, "Well, she didn't really have much to give him, but at least she's here." The guests chuckled lightly, not realizing the cruelty hidden in her words. I could have shrunk in shame, but instead, I stood up slowly, my hands trembling but my heart steady. I walked toward the center of the room, and in a calm voice, I said, "It's true. I had nothing to give my son, no wealth, no property, no education. All I had were these hands, these worn-out hands that worked day and night so he could have what I never did. And though I am poor in money, I am rich in something far greater, love. Because love is what kept me alive. Love is what raised my son, and love is what I still carry in my heart today." The room fell silent. No one spoke, no one laughed. Even Clara's eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite name: guilt, perhaps, or maybe shame. I didn't stay long after that. I excused myself politely, kissed my son on the cheek, and whispered, "Remember, Daniel, a mother's love is not measured in gold, but in sacrifice." Then I left, walking into the night with a quiet dignity that no insult could ever take away. Back in my small house, I sat by the window and thought about what had happened. I didn't know if my words had reached their hearts, but I knew one thing: I had spoken my truth, not with anger, but with love. And sometimes, love is the sharpest reply of all. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. Time has a way of teaching lessons that words alone cannot. After that evening at Daniel and Clara's house, I returned to my small home and continued living as I always had. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and soon years had passed. My hair grew whiter, my steps slower, but my heart remained steady. I did not hold anger, I did not carry hate. I simply lived, waiting for life to unfold in its own way. Daniel and Clara visited me less and less. Sometimes Daniel would call, his voice polite but distant, as though I were just another task on his list. Clara rarely spoke to me, except for the occasional holiday greeting, short and formal. At times, I wondered if my words that night had touched her heart, but I did not dwell on it. Some seeds take years to grow. Then one morning, I received a knock at my door. When I opened it, I saw Clara standing there, her belly round with pregnancy. For a moment, I was startled. She had never come alone before. She looked tired, her eyes heavy, but her voice was soft. "I thought I'd tell you. We're expecting." My heart leaped. Despite everything, despite all the pain, I smiled with genuine joy. "That's wonderful news, my child. May this baby bring you both happiness." She nodded, but there was no warmth in her reply. She stayed only a few minutes before leaving. Still, that short visit planted a small spark of hope in me. Maybe motherhood would soften her. Maybe it would help her understand. When the baby was born, a little girl named Emily, my heart swelled. Daniel brought her to visit me once, placing the tiny bundle in my arms. As I looked at her delicate face, I whispered, "Welcome, little one. May you grow with love, and may your heart always know kindness." For the first time in years, I felt whole again, holding a new life that carried my blood. But time moved quickly, and as Emily grew, I began to notice things. Clara was often impatient, often harsh. She loved her daughter, yes, but she also demanded perfection. If Emily spilled her drink, or stained her clothes, Clara would scold her. If she cried too loudly, Clara would snap. Daniel tried to calm her, but his voice was as weak as it had been with me. I watched silently, realizing that Clara was walking the same path she had once pushed me onto. The cycle was repeating itself. When Emily was older, she began to resist. She rolled her eyes at her mother, muttered under her breath, ignored Clara's instructions. At first, Clara thought it was just childish misbehavior, but as the years passed, the distance grew. Emily preferred to stay in her room, to spend time with friends, rather than with her mother. Clara's words, once sharp, began to bounce back to her like echoes. I could see the pain in Clara's eyes, though she tried to hide it. She came to me one day, her voice trembling, and said, "I don't understand her. I gave her everything. She has a beautiful home, the best clothes, the best school. Why does she push me away?" I looked at her gently and replied, "It is not what you give with your hands, Clara. It is what you give with your heart." A child remembers not the money spent, but the love shown. Respect and kindness cannot be replaced by gifts. She fell silent. For once, she had no reply. The years continued to teach her. One evening, Emily had friends over at their home. Clara proudly showed them around, boasting about the house, the furniture, the expensive things she had bought. But when she called for Emily to introduce her, the girl muttered, "Mom is always so embarrassing, loud enough for everyone to hear." Clara's face turned red with shame. In that moment, she felt the sting of disrespect, the same sting she had once caused me. Not long after, Clara came to my home again. This time, she didn't come with pride or mockery. She came with tears. Her hands trembled as she held them together, her eyes red as she knelt before me. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I am sorry. I didn't know how much I hurt you. I didn't know what it felt like to be disrespected until my own child did it to me. Please, please forgive me." I reached for her hands, holding them gently. My old, wrinkled fingers wrapped around hers, and I looked at her not with anger, but with love. "Clara," I said softly, "a mother does not keep anger in her heart. We do not count the wrongs. We only pray for our children to learn. I forgave you long ago." She wept openly, burying her face in my lap, like a daughter seeking comfort. I stroked her hair, whispering, "Now you know, my child. Respect is the foundation of love. Without it, even the grandest house feels empty. Remember this lesson, and teach it to Emily. Break the cycle, so she may grow up knowing both love and respect." From that day forward, Clara changed. Slowly, but surely, her words softened. She learned patience, she learned humility, she learned gratitude. She began to treat me differently, to offering me tea when I visited, listening to my stories without judgment, even asking for my advice. It was as though motherhood had opened her eyes, and the pain she endured had finally broken her pride. Daniel, too, grew more attentive. Perhaps seeing the transformation in his wife reminded him of the mother who had once carried him through storms. He began to visit me more often, bringing small gifts, sometimes sitting quietly with me for hours. He didn't always say much, but his presence spoke the words he had failed to say years before. One evening, as we all sat together, Daniel, Clara, Emily, and I looked around the table and felt a warmth I had not felt in years. There was laughter, there was respect, there was love. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. And in that moment, I realized that life had come full circle. The pain, the insults, the tears, they had all led to this lesson. Sometimes love is not about fighting back. Sometimes love is about enduring, about replying not with anger, but with patience and faith. As the night grew late, Emily hugged me and said, "Grandma, I love you." My eyes filled with tears. That simple sentence was all I ever wanted to hear from my son, from his wife, from the family I had built with my blood and sacrifice. Before leaving, I looked at Clara and Daniel and said softly, "Remember, my children, wealth can vanish, beauty fades, even health will one day leave us. But respect and love, those are the treasures that remain forever. Never forget that." And as I closed my eyes that night in my small, humble home, I smiled. For though I was poor in the eyes of the world, in that moment, I felt like the richest woman alive.